realized really quick that nobody's going to work their entire life, save their money, save their nest egg, and then trust a 23, 24-year-old kid with all of that money. And you're dealing with people that own, multi-million dollar buildings, and you don't really know what the hell you're doing. So you need to learn, you need to put the time in. I had a decent year. And then 2008, I had a decent year up until the market crashed. And the market crashed, man. And I didn't make a dollar in 2009. I
Wow.
didn't make $1, not one sale. He cussed at me and he said I shouldn't be there. He said that I was being childish and selfish, and I came in with pillow creases on my face. And he said, grab your shit and get out of here. That was a moment in time that changed my life. And from that time on, my career took off. I got really serious about it. I became the fastest vice president of that company in history. My name is Steve Strick. I was born and raised, still live most of the time here in St. Louis, Missouri, in the Midwest. You know what? For me, it's been great. It taught me a lot of things. I've traveled all across the country, a lot of places, outside of the country. I still enjoy calling St. Louis home, even though a lot of people don't even know where it is. I've been to Florida and New York and California, and tell people that I'm from St. Louis, and they're like, where is that again? I do have a Midwest vibe with the East and West Coast vibe as well, all mixed into one. But I guess my milestones came when I got into the mortgage business. I played sports all my life at a very high level. So I had some accolades playing soccer. I was smaller at that time and I could stop a little easier than I can now. A little bulkier up top. Yeah, I played soccer all my life. We were nationally ranked #2 in the nation my junior year in high school. I went to an all guys high school primarily for sports, although it was a great academic school as well. And then it was such a job, though, that I decided I didn't really want to play soccer in college. Could have, but I wanted to go to Mizzou, which is the University of Missouri Tigers, who actually just beat Ohio State a couple of weeks ago
Do that.
in football, which is a great game. But I spent a lot of time at Mizzou. And when I say a lot of time, I actually spent 6.5 years in college.
Wow.
And I do not have my doctorate. I do not have my master's degree. Although, I was called Van Wilder at times. I kept telling my dad, and people around me know this, but I kept telling my dad, I get to network a little bit more. I get to meet more people because college is one of those things where freshmen come in and then the seniors go out. So as people recycle, I stay a couple more years. I get to meet some more people. It was
Mhm.
just a bullshit excuse, but I had a great time and,
Yeah.
ended up wrapping that up. Yeah, my milestones, I got into my first job out of college was actually with Morgan Stanley. It was interesting back then, and it was like 2006. I'm 41 years old now. 2006, 2007, it was still called a stockbroker at that time.
Mm.
So, it wasn't financial planner or whatever everybody's going to call it these days. So I got into that business and not really knowing a lot about it, just knew that, the guys that are successful, they typically make money, they're wearing nice suits, and that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So got into the business. It wasn't for me. I was in it for 7 months. Realized really quick that nobody's going to work their entire life, save their money, save their nest egg, and then trust a 23, 24-year-old kid with all of that money.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And I didn't think about that before I got into it, but now I look back on it, I'm like, it completely makes sense because I wouldn't do that. Instead of joining, another seasoned financial advisor, financial planner, stockbroker, whatever you want to call it, I ended up getting out of that business and I got into commercial real estate. And there was a company actually based out of California called Marcus and Millichap. Yeah, they only focus on investment sales. So there's no tenant rep, no leasing. And I had a lot of friends in commercial real estate at that time, but they leased space or, they did tenant rep or things like that. Not too many of them on the investment sales side. And Marcus Millichap came to town. They said, Steve, you'd be really good at this. Why don't you try it out? I said, you know what? Let's try it out. That was 2007. Seven was decent. I was getting my feet wet. I was calling everybody around town. I got into the cold call game, and it was serious because it was a big person's sport at that time. I could say a big man's game or, a big woman's game, but it was an adult job. It was an adult
Yeah.
career. And you're dealing with people that own, multi-million dollar buildings, and you don't really know what the hell you're doing. So you need to learn, you need to put the time in. I had a decent year. And then 2008, I had a decent year up until the market crashed. And the market crashed, man. And I didn't make a dollar in 2009. I
Wow.
didn't make $1, not one sale, because
Sheesh.
dude, and think about it. I had credit cards and I would still go out. I would still go to dinner. I would still act like I was making money. I'm just racking up credit card debt because in the commercial real estate world, especially on the investment sales, when you're buying and selling buildings, one deal is a pretty good check.
Yeah.
And two or three deals a year can make your year. But if you don't close any, then it's tough. And I was in the office property type. So 2008, when people lost their jobs, what happened was the value of these buildings just decreased overnight because the value of any type of commercial building that has leases in it, the value's in the lease.
Yeah.
And these office buildings, the lights just started going off because companies were closing and they
Mm.
weren't paying their lease. They were just going bankrupt and defaulting. And so the value of the buildings instantly decreased by 25, 50%. And the owners were not going to sell at that point. So there really wasn't a lot of volume trading at that time.
Okay.
So fast forward, I got into the mortgage business not too long after that. And it was by accident. I didn't know what a loan officer was. I
Okay.
had a friend that was making decent money that I thought at that time. And, coming off a year where I didn't make a dollar, decent money was not life changing, by any means, but it was really good money at that time. So
Yeah.
I ended up getting a job in the mortgage business. I knew some people. They got me an interview with a man. His name's Al Will. God bless his soul. He's in heaven looking down now. But I didn't know it at the time, but I met with this man and he was 75 years old and he became my mentor. I didn't know he was my mentor. I didn't know that that's what was going to happen. And we talk about this in life, things happen and you plan some and you don't plan some. And it's
Yeah.
just, that's the way it works, man. I ended up getting the job with a company called Gershman Mortgage. It was the oldest privately held mortgage company in St. Louis. And it was an interesting ride. I mean, full transparency, 30 days into it, I was still young. I almost got fired. I did. I almost got let go because,
Really?
it was an outside sales job. So, you think that if you didn't go into work one day, you could say you were making calls. And it was my birthday. And literally, I remember the date because my birthday, I started on July 5th, which is the day after July 4th. My
Uh-huh.
birthday was on July 28th. My friends were taking me to the baseball game. We went out. And that was a Thursday night. Friday, I went into work and I got there. I was a little hungover at the time. I'm more responsible these days. But I was hungover and I left there, Isaac, about 10 o'clock in the morning. And I went home and I took a nap. So
Mm.
I wake up a few hours later and my friends are blowing my phone up and they're like, Steve, where are you? Mr. Will's looking for you. And people called him Mr. Will. You could not call him Al until he
Mm.
gave you permission. That's the old
Yeah.
school mentality, respect.
Yes, sir.
And that was great for me. Fast forward. I said, tell him I'm making calls. They're like, you don't understand. He's 75. He's been in this business for 52 years. He knows what you're doing, even when you don't know what you're doing. And he knows that you're at home. And I'm like, are there cameras around? How does he know? He knows because of experience. That's the pure fact that he's just been in the business. So I get into work early Monday and I thought I was going to beat him in the office. Usually get to work about 8:30, got there at 7:30. He was there. He was there already with the sales manager, and nobody else was in the building. Nobody. He called me in his office. He shut both doors, and when you get double doored, it's usually a problem. So he had two doors in his office. He laid into me really, 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 really bad, or really good. Depends how you look at it.
Yeah.
And he cussed at me, and he told me that I didn't want to be there. And he said I shouldn't be there. He said that, I was being childish and selfish, and I came in with pillow creases on my face, which in, that generation's terms means you weren't looking good. You
Yeah.
looked like Gatorade in your hand. I could tell you were hungover. And the guy called me out, and he called me out in a way, Isaac, that really my life kind of changed at that moment in time.
Mm.
Literally in that moment in time, because he said, you don't want to be here. Why don't you grab your shit and leave? And I said, no, Mr. Will, I do. I do. He said, no, you don't. No, you don't. You showed me you don't want to be here. And I said, yes, I do. This went on for 45 minutes and he was cussing. And a lot of people in today's world, and I know this for a fact because I manage a lot of people and you know how it goes too. You manage a lot of people. One, a lot of people wouldn't sit there and take that in today's world. They would
Mm.
not take what I went through. But I didn't look at that as him coming down on me. I looked at that as he saw a lot of potential in me and
Hmm.
he wanted to see which direction I wanted to go to. And he said, grab your shit and get out of here. You don't want to be here. And I fought for that. And that was a moment in time where we have a choice. to go left or we go right. If I went left, it's basically saying, you know what? I'm not going to sit here and listen to this person yell at me. I'm going to go get another job where I'm going to be respected. Well, I shouldn't have been respected because I needed to own my own shit. And I say that all the time. People need to look in the mirror.
Yeah.
And he made me look in the mirror, the proverbial mirror, it wasn't actually there. But I said, I do want to be here. And I fought for that position. And he said, well, you need to show me. That day, my cube actually was right outside of his office. And so I never missed a day of work after that, ever. Still haven't. I always am in tune. If I'm not going to be there because of a meeting or because of a conference, I let people know. But that moment in time showed me what it took to actually be successful because I wanted to be him. I wanted
Hmm.
to be the guy on the other side of the desk in the nice fancy suit, still at 75, all the way up until the day he passed. He was one of the sharpest dressed guys I know. And that was the start of my career. That was a moment in time that changed my life. And from that time on, my career took off. I got really serious about it. He gave me opportunities once he saw that I was all in that he didn't give other people. I became the fastest vice president of that company in history.
Wow.
And, it happened in like 2.5 years. I leveraged my network, and we can talk about that today. Networks are very, very important. I had a massive network. He knew that, but he saw potential. And then he became my mentor. And I remember one day, this is funny. We're going down the hall, and he goes, I said, Mr. Will, can I talk to you? He said, Steve, I want you to call me Al. And I said, okay, Mr. Will, because it was so ingrained in my, and he said, damn it, Steve, I told you to call me Al. And I said, yes, Al, yes, Al. So, at that point, we had a different relationship. And I actually looked at him as a grandfather figure. I looked at him as a father figure at times. I looked at him as a business mentor because when you said his name in St. Louis, he was the man. He was
Yeah.
the man. Yeah, I grew my business pretty quick through my networks. I ended up meeting my wife today through business. That's a great milestone in my life too. Fast forward to probably 2015, I ended up starting to build a team, and my team at that point was two people. Myself and one other person. I had to build it because my production was going up and I couldn't handle it myself. And then my team started to grow more and I started to pour into people. And, in 2018, I was doing pretty well. Our group was doing between 400 and 500 transactions at that time. Then I got approached by another mortgage company that was more nationwide. I ended up making a move and I grew my career nationwide at another company. And then we started doing about 1,000 transactions a year in 2020 with my group, and it continued to grow and leverage my network and relationships and things like that. And then, just recently I was approached and there was a really, really, really great opportunity for me and my group to move over to New American Funding. And I became a vice president, New American Funding, about a year ago. And now we're working on something very, 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 very big. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's a brief background of Steve.
Well, I think what's more important, and thank you for sharing that because milestones are milestones. I think what you exposed to us is okay, but what unlocked those milestones,
Yeah.
right? So there's a few things I wrote down that I picked up on. One was the fact that you personally had to make a personal decision
Yeah.
that I'm not going to let my ego get in the way of what I really want, right?
Mhm.
In that moment, you're getting yelled at. Let's be real, most people, you're right. And I think it is just what it is nowadays.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
will not stand for being yelled at by
Yeah.
somebody,
Yeah.
even though it's probably the right thing. And I 100% agree, you earned that yelling, right?
Oh, I will
Earned it,
never deny that ever.
right? And what's funny is like you don't get grades in school, you earn grades,
Right.
even the D's and the C's. So
Same
you
with
earned that
respect.
yelling, man. You earned it.
I
And so
did.
you had to sit in what you earned. And I think there's a big important lesson just in that. What I also wrote down was, but you're not the type of guy who, by the way, I didn't know that history about you. I mean, I've known you for a few years now. I've got to
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
you do some tremendous things. You're obviously like super well respected in the circles that we run in.
Thank you.
And
You as well. I want everybody to know that, Isaac. You have
thank
a
you.
very, very, very well-spoken name, by people that you might not even know, but they tell me about
Well, that's
it.
awesome, man. I appreciate that. And I would say the same thing is it's funny because I have a mentor story too.
Yeah.
And it's, Chris Heller and Jeremiah Taylor, really great dudes, former CEO of Keller Williams,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
has poured into me a lot. But it's easy to play the I'm a self-made guy or lady, right? It's easy to
Yeah.
play that game,
Nobody's self-made.
but it's not real. It's not true. Even if
No.
you genuinely believe that, if we went back and diagnosed and looked back at what happened in life, we see that there's those people that create pivotal moments. So, what I'm curious about, because a lot of what this podcast is about is for leaders to lead better.
Yeah.
So, what did you see modeled with Mr. Will? I'll call him that. He gave me permission to call him Al, so I'll call him that. What did you see modeled there that you carry with you to your organization today, whether it's from the brand new person that walks in the door or your middle level managers? What can you shed light that you said, I got that and I saw it modeled for me and I model it now?
I saw dedication, complete dedication. And when I say dedication, this was a man that didn't have to work. He didn't have to do anything. He
Mm.
had millions and millions of dollars, and he did it because he loved it, but he is also dedicated to everybody that worked there. I saw commitment. He was very committed to that. He was very committed to the company getting better every single day. It didn't matter. He was very consistent. Leaders need to be consistent with their messaging. They need to be consistent with the way that they're leading. They need to show up. And a lot of people say show up and show out. It's one of those things where you have to be consistent for your people, because the bigger things in life take a lot of discipline and a lot of consistency. And if you don't give that to the people that you're leading and they don't see that from you, there's going to be no consistency from them. There's going to be no discipline. Al was very, very disciplined too. He was very regimented and he did things. He ate lunch at a certain time. He did a lot of things over and over and over in a routine. And for him, he wasn't on social media. He didn't, have those distractions.
Yeah,
And that to me is huge too, because he was really focused on business and he was really focused on making sure that people did the right thing. And lastly, we talked about it. Accountability. He held me accountable to the fullest extent of the word. We try to hold people accountable today. You have to do it in a different way. You have to meet them where they're at. You have to know your audience, right? You have to know that this guy over here is a little sensitive. So I need to know that. I need to adhere to the way that he reacts to things, and I need to kind of coach myself on that. And this girl over here, she's pretty aggressive. And I swapped them out for a reason, because I just didn't want to think that women are sensitive. Maybe she's really aggressive, and I gotta not be as aggressive with her, and kind of meet her where she's at. So leadership has changed. It's changed a lot, and we need to be changing with it too, because there's certain things that you can do, and they're always going to be the bedrock of being a great leader. And one, you got to have a vision. You got
okay.
to have a vision where your people are going, and you're the leader, you're in front. And there's a reason you're in front. And there's a reason that people are behind you, because you're the person that has to see all of it, right? And then you have to lead them in the straight path, the path to the right, the path to the left, because you're seeing it. And the people behind you are going to follow you, right? They're
Mhm.
going to follow you if they trust you. They're
Yeah,
going to follow you if they respect you. If you have those two things, and you don't necessarily have to like somebody to respect them, right?
true. Very true.
You don't really have to do that. You don't really have to like somebody to trust them. But I can tell you right now, if there's somebody that I might not like, but I trust them and I respect them, I'm still probably going to listen to what they have to say.
Yeah.
Now, if you're trustworthy and you're respectable, most of the times you're likable too.
Yeah.
You put those two things together, and you are about what your word is, and you do what you're going to say, and you make sure that you're there protecting and fighting for the people that are behind you. Guess what? Your army's going to grow, and they're going to be loyal to you, and you're going to retain those people. Almost everybody on my team today has been with me 4 years now. Three maybe is the newest. She'll be with me for life. I already told her that. But that's pretty big in the mortgage world today, because we just went through two of the toughest years in the history of the business. And those are times, when times are good, this, nothing's wrong. Everything's great.
Oh, you could do
Money's
nothing wrong.
flowing.
Yeah.
Nothing's wrong, man. But you don't learn during those times. You
Yeah.
learn when the times are tough. So the last 2 years have been really, really, I'm going to say, good for us, because we came together as a group and we
Mm.
made the bond that we have even stronger. We made the trust that we have even deeper, and nobody quit. Even when people were making a lot less money, nobody quit. You know why? Because I still believe in the vision. I make sure that I keep telling them the vision and why we're here and what we're going to do. and the vision's happening as we speak. And I'm going to change all their lives however I can in a positive way. That's my goal as a leader.
That's huge. So a couple things I picked up on. One is you're not the person who says, "Well, that's how I came up, so
No
therefore
way.
I'm going to force you to
Yeah.
be led the way I was led." Because that's, let's be real, you know this just as well as I do. It's probably why you spent a significant amount of time slowing down and breaking that down about like he might need a softer touch than she does, is because you've probably seen just as much as I have that that still happens.
Still
That's still very
happens.
much a thing where
Yeah.
the old guard, who, like, let's be frank, we're part of that now,
Yeah.
right? It's weird to say.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I've been around now,
Yeah.
and it's interesting because that's how I raised corporate too. Like, hey, I don't want to hear what you have to say right now, Isaac. It's time for you to listen. I remember when one of my mentors, Jeremiah, was like, he literally told me, I don't care what your thing is.
Yeah.
Like I started a sentence when we were kind of like, it was an
Yeah.
accountability moment for me.
Yeah.
And I go, well, here's my thing. And he goes, I don't care what your thing is.
Yeah.
And I sat there and was like,
Damn.
okay, he's
Yeah.
right. Like he's totally right.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever even had this conversation with him. Hopefully he'll see this podcast. We'll send it to him.
I'm glad you're talking about it, man. This is cool. I like this.
Yeah. Because he was like, I don't care what your thing is. Here's what we are trying to accomplish. So the fact that you're trying to tell me where you're coming from is not relevant, Isaac.
Doesn't matter.
And it was one of the best lessons I've ever learned because I go, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Only reason I was speaking up was to shy away from accountability, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And work my own angle.
Yeah. And you
And
know,
that wasn't how we were going to win as a group.
no, I got so many things to say about that. Working your own angle whenever you haven't been there, done it, gotten to where you need to go. Sometimes you don't know what those angles are, what those pitfalls are, and they're trying to coach us through it, right? Leaders should get a mentor, at least somebody they respect and that's been to where they're trying to go. I think that's the fastest way to success, and it's the cheapest way. It's going to save you a lot of money.
Yeah.
But, like you were saying earlier, I was great at sales. I still like to think I'm pretty damn good at sales, but I was really, really good at mortgage sales. I was one of the best, one of the biggest in St. Louis, Missouri, but I was the worst manager. When I
Huh.
started growing a team, I was the worst manager. And here's why. It's because I wanted everybody to be like me. I
Mm.
didn't understand why people weren't. I didn't understand why people didn't do what I did. I didn't understand their thought process behind not doing it this way that I did it before.
Yeah.
I was right because I had this great track record and these big sales numbers. So I was the man, right? And everybody should have done it like me. That's what I thought. And it was really, really trying for me. It got me worked up a lot to the point where, yeah, I would raise my voice and I would probably say things that I definitely wouldn't say, but because I was so frustrated, I needed to grow up a little bit as far as that was concerned
Mm.
and learn people. My degree was actually in psychology. So now I lean on it a little bit more and read a little bit more on that. But as soon as I started to realize that nobody's going to do it exactly like me, man, it changed my world. And for
Yeah.
any leader that's out there that's leading one person or two people, it's easier to lead one or two people because they probably know you. They probably understand you and they can get your quirks. They know when you're in a bad mood. They know when to approach you, not approach you, give you space, whatever it might be. But when you start leading 5, 10, 20, 50 people, you can't have that management in a box mentality anymore.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work that way. It did work that way for Al Will. I mean, he would say a lot of things during an interview process that HR departments would not even go for in today's world. But the times we live in, we've got to be flexible. You still got
Mm.
to hold people accountable though, because I see too many people taking advantage of really good people because they're not being held accountable.
Okay, so that leads me to something because one of the things I think I'd regret if I didn't talk to you about this
Yeah,
is the last 2 years, the
yeah,
tough time bringing people together
yeah,
and knowing that, hey, you're going to have to do triple the amount of work to get half of what you already got
yes.
up here. Talk to me about how you navigated that and help people stay accountable. And this is, I'm just going to be super vulnerable. It's tough to be like, I know things are harder and I'm asking you to put even more effort for less results. And I know you're already going through a lot of other stuff. And how did you balance that? Because in real estate, it was tough for us too, right? But you guys also had refis disappear. So you guys got
We're gone.
a double whammy.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
lost transactions. You guys lost transactions and refi. So talk to me a little bit about how you navigated that as a leader.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that you brought that up, and I'm glad that you recognize that because, you being in real estate at a very high level and understanding mortgage as well, you just said it, refinances just went away. And, we don't have buyers and sellers. We have purchase business and refinance business.
Yep.
There's always going to be purchase and or buyers and sellers in the real estate game. It may be fewer transactions like that, but there's not always going to be refinances. And we saw that happen. It literally, the faucet was turned off completely overnight.
Yep.
So as far as how did I keep people motivated? One, you got to communicate more. You have to communicate more in the times that are tough because that's when you're going to rise as a leader or you're going to fail as a leader.
Mm.
And you need to let them know that you're there to support them. You need to let them know that the times are tough. You need to let them know also you don't understand their situation. I can only imagine your situation, right? I can't say, Isaac, I know what you're going through. I can't, man, because your family situation is different than mine.
Wow.
Your bills are different than mine. Your bank accounts might be different than mine. So I am very conscious when I say that to anybody is I never say I know what you're going through because
Mm.
exactly we don't. I can imagine what they're going through. And then when I imagine, I talk about those things. So I'd have meetings once a week where usually we only have them twice or once every 2 weeks. And I call them collaboration calls. And I've got people, all across the country. And it's really cool how close we've become, even being remote, a lot of
Yeah.
us. And a lot of those calls started with, what's tough out there right now.
Mm.
And when we would talk, we would always start the calls with three positive things. All right, you know what? Tell me something good is what I call it. And I go around the room, I say, tell me something good. And they'd be quiet. I'd call on somebody. And of course they would have something good. But, we changed it up a little bit to the point where we'd say, let's talk about the things that are tough out there right now.
Mm.
And I'd make sure that they bring those up so we can talk through them.
Okay.
Because as a leader, you want to be transparent with what's going on.
Yeah.
And I've known this in my own life to where maybe there are people that are making some decisions and they're not giving you information and you just don't feel good about that.
Mm.
I want my team to know that I'm in this with them. Here's exactly what's going on. We're going to talk about the tough things right now that are out there because if there's one person on this call that knows how to get through that tough thing, we're going to share that solution to everybody on the call. And guess what? That one tough thing isn't as tough anymore.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things for us was interest rates.
Yep.
So interest rates went up and that was a top of conversation. So how do we walk through that when there's so many lenders going after the same deal? My team got better. They got better at, representing their value. They got better at talking to their clients. They poured more into it. I put a post up the other day where I like to put my people on a pedestal on social media as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And the other day I was walking in a loan officer's office. I took a picture and I put it on social media, just to say, hey, good job. You're doing this, you're doing this. But my reference was that we treat every call like the Super Bowl. And what I mean by that is I made sure since there were less deals coming in that we had to fine tune our calls. We had
Okay.
to pay attention. We had to listen. We had to make sure that every client on the other side of that phone thought that they were the only client. We hear that in sales, but you really need to focus on it, right?
Yeah.
And teach your people this one call is your game to win the championship.
Hmm.
Give it everything you got. Make
Is that
sure you're
one
on
that you
top of it.
posted, like something about the Super Bowl or something like that, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, I
just the
saw
other
that one.
day, and I started saying that when we started getting the tough times because it was more crucial for them to close that deal or make sure that that client felt comfortable on that one call, every call,
Mm.
because you didn't have as many calls as you had last year.
Yeah.
So when we start talking about it, the Super Bowl, you only play one Super Bowl per year. And those guys that go out and they played the other day, they had one shot at it, right? So they had to make sure that they trained for it. They had to make sure that they were very, very focused. They had to make sure that everything was perfect during that game for them to win. And if you bring that mentality to every single meeting that you have, or every single phone call that you're taking, or every single podcast that you're going to do, or it doesn't matter. I mean, every single date that you go on with your significant other, husband or wife, treat it special. And if you do that, people will feel it on the other side. And I'm telling you, it works. It works.
That's cool, man. And you know what's interesting is like, talk to me a little bit about this. You know, you're responsible for the vision, for helping people understand where we're going to get to, where we need to be,
Yeah.
and how to get there. Talk to me a little bit about the days where you were also like, man, this is tough, right? Because
Yeah.
I know they had to happen. I know you're human. And like, I don't think I would ask this question just anybody, but like you're a super vulnerable guy and you have been on this podcast as well. So like when you're sitting there and you're looking, I know what needs to happen, but I also know like, dude, this is tough and I don't know. And you know, we're looking back on it now, rates are dropping and stuff like that, right? And so we see some light at the end of the tunnel. There were
Yeah.
some pretty dark times in the last 18 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk to me about like you personally. What does that look like for you personally on whatever it's your routine or your pep talks to yourself? Talk to me a little bit about how you got yourself there because no matter, and maybe I'm wrong, but I would have to imagine some days at least you had to like turn that same inspiration and motivation on yourself to get going.
Yeah, 100%. You know, we're all human beings. You can be as hard as you want to portray yourself, but we all have feelings. You know, people that really know me, they say, you know, I'm a big teddy bear. I've got this exterior look that's kind of tough and raw, and you know, I've got a big heart. We all do, and I have the same emotions that you do and everybody else does. You know, I want to say something about what we talked about earlier when you were saying to your people you had to work 3, 4, 5 times as hard for half the pay. The other thing that was really important is that they saw me doing the same thing.
Mm,
Saw me out there working and creating opportunities for them, even though I wasn't making the same amount of money on the back end. You know, in my business, the way it's set up with me, I'm the last guy to get paid.
yeah.
And you know, I made sure that they knew that I was there fighting the same fight, going out, creating the opportunities for them, because that's what I do. I go out and create the opportunities. I bring the business back to them. I'm not in production anymore, nor
Mhm.
will I be. I'm the guy that has the relationships. And so I continue to go out and grow those and update them on things I was working on. That way they knew that I was there riding with them. So that was very important. But I had tough days too, man. I had tough days too. We all do, right? It's just how do you handle them? And I've gotten better at handling my tough days over time. I still have things to work on, right? There's never going to be perfect. But, you know, my tough days back in the day, I would be really edgy. You wouldn't want to talk to me, you know, kind of like all of us. I did grow into some emotional intelligence, knowing that I had to be strong in front of my people and not come down on them just because I'm having a bad day. If I'm having a bad day, it doesn't need to be everybody else's problem.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
people need to realize that if I'm having a bad day, it doesn't need to be my wife's problem. How many of us are out there and they say, I had this shitty day at work and you know, I just don't want to talk. It's not their fault, right? It shouldn't come down on them. And it's tough to do. But at the same time, whenever your mindset can be stronger than your emotions and feelings, you're going to be able to control those things. But when I was having my tough days, yeah, I mean, I work out in the morning. So that's usually when I get my juices flowing.
Oh,
Better
you
play
work out?
baseball.
I couldn't
Sometimes,
tell. Dude, I
sometimes.
was like, I need to like taper my shirt or something so I don't look so scrawny compared to you.
That see, you can't tell in this shirt, but I joke with people all the time. They're like, "So you work out? What do you do?" I said, "No, I just buy smaller shirts." No, in all seriousness, back to my tough days, because if I can help anybody that's on the other side of this lens, I had somebody that I would talk to. I had somebody that I could vent to. It wasn't many people. It was one person. The power of having one outlet as opposed to not having any, and you get to choose, right? You
Yeah.
can choose the person that you can really, really trust and say, hey, you know what? When I'm having a bad day, man, I just need to talk to you because when I talk to you, it makes me feel better. Getting it off my chest makes me feel better because when you hold it in, it just spins through your brain nonstop. And
Hmm.
the way that I look at it is sometimes if it's spinning, if it's spinning, if it's spinning, if it's bothering me, and I can purge it by talking to somebody, you know, and not just talking to myself, which that helps sometimes too when you just talk it out loud. It helped me a lot. I was pretty good at that. You know, it did have to get to a certain level before, you know, I'd vent to somebody and they were cool with it, you know, and they understood because they can vent to me too. So that's how that works.
Yeah.
Is I'm not just saying, hey, Isaac, you know, I need to call you when I'm having a tough time. And you're like, Steve's calling again. It's no, you can call me too. And guess what? We're in this little circle of major trust, knowing that I'm telling you my secrets and why I'm having a bad day. You're telling me the same thing. And guess what? We're going to get better together.
Yeah.
So that was really, really big for me. There's money. It's always, when you're making a lot of money and then all of a sudden things change, it's all relative, right? To your lifestyle. And
Yeah.
as you come up, some money that you're making today might be a lot for somebody else, but from what you are making, it might not be. And you still have the same concerns. When you make more money, you buy more things. And, there's plenty of times where I was thinking this cannot go on forever.
Yeah.
Because if this goes on forever, guess what? We're going to have to start selling one of our homes or whatever it is. And I made sure, and I make sure as a man and, somebody that needs to provide for my family, that will never happen.
Mm.
So I took those things and I never looked at it as, God, today's another shitty day and I've got to do this and this. It's, you know what? I get to go to work today. I get to still be in
Mm.
the business that I love and I get to go make opportunities. And when you can change your mindset into doing that, it's a little easier to make the calls. It's a little easier to set the meetings. It's a little easier to have a positive outlook.
That's huge because what I hear there is shifting like what has to be done into a privilege,
Yeah,
right? And it's funny because I think seeing things as a privilege is one of the easiest ways to shift your thinking.
it
So something
is.
that you actually mentioned was Mr. Will, right? Mr. Will.
Yeah, Al.
He was yelling at you. You said it's because he saw potential. Funny, I was just talking with my son about this not too long ago. He has a coach in baseball that gets on him, and he's on him, and the kid's 6,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And he goes, Dad, I don't like the way Coach John talks to me sometimes.
yeah,
And I go,
yeah,
hey, man, I get it. The tone is challenging, but do you see what's going on? And I
yeah.
said, how about so and so? I won't say the name. Do you ever see Coach kind of get on him? He goes, no.
Never.
And I go, and do you know why? He goes, well, I don't know. I go, what is he normally doing during practice in the games? He's like, I don't know, playing around. Oh, yeah, it's because
Exactly.
he doesn't expect anything from him.
Yeah,
He doesn't see that. He expects you to make mistakes, but be focused. He only gets on you when you're losing focus. He knows you can focus. In other words, and so now we have this phrase, pressure is a privilege. So you go to
yeah. It's
7,
awesome.
he just turned 7 on Monday. You go to my 7-year-old and go, I go, what do you know about pressure? And he goes, it's a privilege.
That gave me chills, man. That gave me chills, seriously, because your now 7-year-old is going to be that much more mentally strong. And it's very important in today's world than everybody around them. And it is a privilege. And like you said, when people see potential in you, sometimes they're a lot harder on you.
Mm,
And it's because it's a couple things. They expect more out of you because it's in there. Your talent is in there. And also, they know where you can go.
mm,
They know what your ability can do for you and where it can take you. You don't know that yet. And the coolest thing about this was you being the lens that your son needed to look through to see it that way.
yeah.
Because your son is here, the coach is here, and then there's this blurry vision in between here. And he's just like, I just don't like it. And you explained it to him and you showed him, son, you know what? This is actually a pretty amazing thing. And
Yeah.
it's because you have the experience, Isaac. You're his father, you're his leader, you're his vision. And if there's more people in the world that would talk about the positive things in life, which let's call them 10%, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to the 90% of negative things, which that's where a lot of people live anyways. Some people aren't happy unless they're unhappy.
Yeah.
And if people would just not waste energy on the negativity and turn the stuff into positivity and see the bigger picture and see the optimism, it's going to take you places that the other 90% will never even dream of going.
And you know what? You're right. Actually, like I'm thinking about it now. So Coach John, the last game of the season, he before playoffs, last game of the season, he goes, I'm not coaching this game. You guys know what to do. I'm not going to coach. I'm going to sit right there and eat a popsicle and watch you guys play and just enjoy the game. And my son came up to me like in the 3rd inning because I'm one of the assistant coaches, 3rd or 4th inning. And he goes, I don't like that Coach John isn't coaching. And it's funny because now he's like, no, I want the it's almost like he realized like, oh,
Leadership.
he's not yelling at me.
Yeah.
I'm not getting what I need.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
wasn't a vicious yeller, right? He was a good coach.
Yeah.
And to the point where my son is like, is he coaching again this year? Right? Is he
Yeah.
coaching again?
Yeah.
So I think that's crucial. Kind of wrapping this up and bringing this home because I think this went way deeper than I was hoping for when I was expecting. Anything that you want to share that's really on your heart in terms of like knowing that the target audience for this podcast, especially this episode, is building, maintaining, but then also making sure that you're modeling really well. What's something you can leave us with when it comes to, hey, I know that the grind is the grind to build. I know you got to be systems oriented and
Yeah.
operationally excellent to get there. But then
Mhm.
also, how do I impart to other people and model really well? Because I think that's one of the things I've noticed with you is just really good modeling for your people. If there's anything you could leave us with, what would that be?
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people want to be leaders and they want to have an organization. They want to have a team. They want to do all these things because it looks great on social media. It looks great on paper. It looks great to see your name, on the building that's out there, whether it's like the Steve Strick team or whatever it is. And I actually gave my name up as far as our group's concerned years ago because I wanted to give the name back to the team, something that we could all do and not just focus on me. So if you want to be a leader, I think that you really need to look in the mirror. I
Mm,
think you need to take inventory of yourself way before you start being responsible for other people. Because just because you're a good salesperson doesn't mean you're going to be a great leader. Just because you're a person that is really good on a team doesn't mean that you're going to be a really good person leading a team. So these are things that you really need to ask yourself. Just because it looks sexy doesn't mean that it is. In fact, it takes a lot more time, a lot more stress, a lot more work, a lot more money than most people think. I've grown a team, from when it was myself to two people, right? And then, a couple of or a year ago, yeah, I had 59 people on my team,
wow.
and 59 people across the nation is, you think about it, you have 59 people in your building or in your city, you can kind of keep track of them a little bit,
Yeah.
but I had 59 people legitimately all across the entire country. And I always looked myself in the mirror and I said, how the hell am I going to be able to keep all these people together and give them all value that they can all use individually? So I guess my answer to this is, if you want to be a leader, make sure that you're ready to be a leader. And when you commit to that, you have to commit to a lot of growth in a lot of different areas that you never had to before. So you need to look at people that are great leaders and you need to ask them for their time. You need to ask them for 15 minutes. You need to ask them for 30 minutes a week, and get a mentor or get a coach. Even if you can't afford a coach, get a mentor. I
Yeah.
mean, even the best players in the entire world at any sport have coaches, and those coaches have coaches, and those coaches have coaches. I would say, yeah, if you want to be a leader, you need to make sure that you're up for the job and realize that you're going to be responsible for every single person that you're leading and their families. And that's serious, because when you start putting their families into play, as opposed to just thinking that you're going to want to grow a team, it probably is going to kick you in the ass a little bit better to, or a little bit more to be a better person in a lot of different areas that maybe you need to work on.
That gives me something to think about. And I want to like confirm this is kind of what you were mentioning is you're a hotshot salesperson, right?
Yeah.
You're a
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
Mhm.
You decide to start a team.
Yeah.
You're now a one
A one.
in the leadership world,
A one. And don't
right?
let that ego get in the way. The ego that you had when you were a 10 out of 10, it grows. And we know the best salespeople out there, myself included at times, the egos grow. And it's very, very humbling to walk from being the best salesperson into being the worst leader.
I mean, it's a terrifying thing. So, man, I just appreciate your time. Selfishly, like as you were saying, like you got to get a mentor, you got to ask questions, grab someone's 15. I mean, that's what I was doing. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I have this platform, I'm launching this podcast. Sure, I'll give you the production and give you that so you can post it on your stuff and you can cut it into whatever content you want.
Yeah.
But I was like, well, if I really wanted to learn from somebody, who would it be?
Yeah.
And you're one of the first five people that I messaged. You might have even been the second or first. I'm just incredibly grateful for you, man. I really appreciate you truly. And offline, if there's ever anything I can do for you, please let me know, dude.
I want you to know the same thing. You know what? This right here kind of brings us even closer together. I want to congratulate you on the new things that are happening in your life.
Yeah.
And I wish you nothing but the most success, bro. And I'm going to be here for you till the day I die. So if you need anything at all, I'll be here. And I know you're there for me too.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate you, Steve.
All right, buddy. Take care.